to order. It is 8 p.m. This is a continuation of the City of Williston Charter Review Workshop. And it's June 28th. It is now 8 o'clock. We're going to continue for about another hour, maybe. We'll give it up at that point. We will continue with section 2.05, Mayor's Duties and Powers. It says the mayor of the city shall attend regular and special meetings of the city council, supervise the administration of the police and fire departments of the city, approve the appointment of city police officers as may be budgeted for by the city council and nominated by the chief of police, excuse me. Let me start that over again. Appoint police officers as may be budgeted by the city council and nominated by the chief of police. Approve and the suspension of any police officers as recommended by the chief of police. Give orders and instructions to the chief of police in regard to the enforcement of city ordinances, provided that the police officers shall take orders and instructions only from the chief of police.
Madam President, I would suggest that we take each of these by subsection.
Yeah, I was going to stop right there.
Okay, perfect.
I didn't think we had a problem with the first one. Okay. Attend special and regular meetings, so I don't think we have a problem with that. Anybody have an issue with the second set, number B? Yes, sir.
Since the mayor's over the,
You gotta click twice.
Since he's over the police and fire, it'd be good to have an office there, since he oversees them.
That is true. I'm not real sure why his office is over here instead of over there. Who knows?
I was just curious. I mean, if,
That's true, but I think citizens that are elected might want to come in and talk to them. I don't know.
I don't know.
Whoever designed the bill.
Neither. I don't think it has anything to do with the charter. No, but that's a good question.
Yeah. That's good.
Okay, are we ready to move to C? Be responsible for the enforcement of all laws, charter provisions, ordinances, resolutions, and other acts of the city council related to the police and fire departments. Are we okay with that? Turn the page.
No, I wasn't okay with that.
Okay.
Giving everybody else an opportunity. The wording. I'm just gonna read this, the last portion. Be responsible for blah, 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 for resolutions and other acts of the city council related to the police and fire department only?
What your duties are.
Yeah.
You're only police and fire.
So the mayor has no responsibility on ordinances and resolutions and other acts of the city council unless they are the police and fire department.
Correct.
That's what this says, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's my reading of it. You all agree with that? Good for me.
Okay, turn the page. D, in the event of vacancy, nominate a chief of police or a chief or a fire chief for approval by the city council.
I think some language ought to be changed there.
Starting to say we need some work on that one, don't we?
What item are we on, please?
D. D, at the top of page 3.
The event of a vacancy?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I would say in the event of a vacancy to appoint rather than a nominate, the chief of police or whatever to an interim position from an approved list. And that the council shall receive resumes on all applicants. It says to nominate, well, that stops it right there. And I think there should be more to it than just nominating the chief of police. I think he should be appointed to an interim position to be,
Confirmed.
Hmm?
Interim and then to be confirmed by the city
Yeah,
council.
yeah. And I think the city council should receive resumes on all applicants for the job, whether in-house or out-house.
Chester, that did sound funny, didn't it? Okay, do you think we need to, oh, you're so good, you got your hand up. I was getting ready to say, do you think we need to make reference to any HR policy?
Yes, and just so that there's a defined process. Can't hear you, sorry.
What's your hair?
Her mic works, you just have to turn it on.
Hello. I think there should be a defined process, which is a lot like Councilman Ross is saying. So if there's a process that's defined that references or matches the HR manual, and also making sure that the council gets to review the resumes, but whatever that process is, it needs to be defined. And so whatever the council decides the process is, there could be some recommendations to this part that we can discuss, but it's basically a defined process.
We also need to remember not to get too deep in it.
Mhm.
It needs to be general,
Mhm.
because if it gets too deep, we're gonna do it by charter help me with that.
Referendum.
Thank you, charter referendum, in order to change it ever. So we need to just be, even if it refers to the current HR policy without stating what it is, other than, I agree with.
But if you
completely
defer
what you
to the
said.
HR manual, that process then defers to the city manager. Because
Okay.
the HR
Can't do that.
manual defers to the approval of the hiring through the HR manager. So it kind of takes away from the mayor's final
We don't wanna do
decision.
We don't wanna do
And if
that.
we don't wanna do that,
We're
then we may need to redefine the process.
Okay, I see Mr. Steagleton up.
Yeah, I like Councilman Ross.
Find your microphone if you will.
I like, Councilman Ross's suggestion in that, it kind of alleviates the fact that there is no sitting police chief. It adds an interim and waits for the confirmation, which gives the flexibility of the council and the mayor to define that process each time if required. If we were to iron out a process on this every single time,
Yeah.
then it would have to be done the same way, and like they said earlier, don't
Yeah.
reinvent the wheel, less is more.
Yeah, we don't wanna do
Let's leave it kind of broad strokes, like this is the core, we can talk grits and gravy later.
And it needs to, and as it's written, it's interim chief, be it police or fire. Which is what it says right here.
Right.
Okay, so you kinda know where we wanna go with it.
I like the appointed to interim, yes.
Yep, so appoint
It
to,
would be appoint interim,
right.
Correct.
and then confirmation by the council. And if the council didn't confirm, then the mayor would appoint the next one. Correct?
I don't know, so if you wanna be,
Well, that's always a possibility.
if you wanna be more specific with it, we need to get the
No, I
language in
don't,
here.
I'm trying to understand what you're going for here.
I think, if I may, the goal here is to make sure the hiring process is done in accordance with the law. Because
Right.
there's certain, personnel law that we have to comply with, that keeps us out of lawsuits. So if you just make reference to the policy established within the HR manual, make sure that policy is reviewed annually or however often, make sure that it's in compliance with state federal regulation for HR policy, HR regulations. See what I'm saying? We have a boundary that we have to stay within, and all we're gonna do is say that y'all are gonna be reviewing per the HR manual that establishes the policy for hiring.
But
All
also,
that is.
but also, if the HR manual, that's what I'm hearing Ms. Nelson say, if the HR manual refers back to the city manager, we need a separate section that refers instead to the mayor
That's exactly right.
for these two positions.
Right now, it's all inclusive, we need to pull that out.
I just oppose this 100%.
Oh, no, you want that.
Well, no, I don't. If you're saying, which is what I'm
Take
hearing,
me out of the
is
equation.
the mayor no longer is the one appointing these or nominating these, instead, the mayor has to go to HR to nominate his chief of police? I have
No.
100%.
That's
No,
not,
no,
that's
no,
not,
no.
Explain it differently.
No,
not at all. The
What?
mayor nominates.
What
Once
is-
the nomination goes in, the process that we follow is according to the manual.
We changed to nominate to appoint.
Yes.
We changed to appoint to interim, you appoint interim
Yes,
chief,
I'm fine with those two
meaning
things.
police or fire.
It's when you start entering into the complexities of the HR manual and putting it on the back of this process that it loses its broad strokes and goes into specifics, which I thought we had all agreed not to do.
Well, what it said was, what Ms. Nelson said, was that it currently refers to the city manager as being the person who does that. Well, in these two jobs right here, it's not the city manager. It should be the mayor. So if we're gonna refer to the HR manual, we need a separate subsection that talks about the fire chief and the police chief only, and it referring back to the mayor.
Process for hiring, and the process for
That's why
hiring.
we change the process. Make sure we define the process.
I would like to see the new process, because I'll be frank,
We don't have to put it right.
I am not clear.
Yeah, I understand.
Are you saying, and I have read this several times, are you saying that we're talking about section?
D.
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 Talking about D.
In the event of a vacancy, nominate the chief of police or the fire chief for approval by the city council, is what mine says.
Yes, and what Mr. Ross just said was, it says in the event of vacancy, that the mayor would appoint an interim chief.
I'm fine there. Where in here do we start getting into HR stuff?
Because we have to follow the HR manual.
And we wanna put that in this broad stroke?
We wanna do it broad stroke, not talk about it. Other than the fact we wanna not make it be the city manager.
Correct.
We wanna specifically, broad stroke still, broad stroke that it be the mayor.
It doesn't talk about city manager here, it talks about
Thank
city
you.
manager.
But in the HR manual it does.
We wanna make sure that we
Let's change
separate.
your HR man.
No,
Yeah.
because
We
the rest
wanna
of
make
them,
sure
it is
we-
the city
We
manager.
wanna make sure we separate the process for which we vet the applicant, separate from police and fire from the general employee. That's all that is. Because
We'll
we
bring the
don't
language
have
back.
the mayor.
Bring me language back.
Yeah, that's
Because
all.
we need to understand it too.
Very simple.
And it's whether we're gonna refer to the HR process in here, or whether
Process, but change the language specifically.
for police and fire.
Police and fire.
So that the final decision can be the mayor's decision
Okay.
and not the city.
The next question is, if the city council, after seeing the resume, as Mr. Ross has brought up, if, let's just pretend that the council did not approve the person that you had as interim chief,
Yes.
then what? And I'm asking you that question. What would you
Well,
want,
thank you.
what would you want to happen then?
What I would want to happen then is,
More candidates.
I would have to nominate the next candidate.
You would come back with
I
somebody
would
else.
come back with another
Okay.
candidate.
Then we
I'm
need-
sure that's what any mayor would do.
Well, then we need to be that needs to be in there too. Even if it's part of your HR process and not here.
Right, correct. You just gonna make reference to it. So.
So we're gonna change the HR for that,
Yes,
but we can't change the HR for the other.
we are gonna change the HR for
Oh,
the other.
good,
Yeah,
So that it says mayor, not city manager.
right.
okay.
Okay, so we're gonna just change this little part right here, but it's gonna refer to whatever you're gonna change, so when you bring it back, you have to have a companion piece.
Right.
I guess receiving resumes is out of the question.
No.
No,
That's
that,
part of it still.
That is still part of it.
that's part of it.
I think that's very reasonable that the council, after the appointment of a temporary chief
Absolutely.
and fire department, because they have to vote on it.
Well, they have to keep the process
They have to
working.
vote it, and they can't vote
Who has,
intellectually.
oh,
You have to
the police
approve
and
it.
fire?
You have to approve it,
Yes,
that's a vote.
yes, yes,
So you can't do that without the resume.
something to look at, even knowing the
I have
name.
no problem with that.
Okay, so we're gonna just put this little piece right here in here.
If you put that little piece, we'll have no issue.
And
If we
she's
start
gonna-
going down a rabbit trail, we might.
Well, it's gonna refer to the HR policy, which she's gonna pull out sections of that refer it back to you and not the city
Fix
manager.
it, that's all.
And she's,
I'll wait to see it.
yeah, me too. And she's gonna bring it to us both on at the same time. All right, everybody okay with that?
I have a question.
The attorney seems to have something she wants to say.
Mine will be at the end, go ahead.
I can't hear you.
Mr. Stiegel, did you have your
I'll
hand up
speak at
first?
the end, I wanna let.
I was asking,
Oh, I heard you,
Chief
Mark.
Siegel, if he understood.
I'm sorry, yeah, I think I understood what they're talking about. I'm not sure why we're trying to amend a HR policy in the middle of a charter review.
I agree, that's what I.
That was I understand what you're talking about.
Because there are certain elements of the HR policy that keep us out of trouble legally when you're hiring someone.
Yes, ma'am,
It's
but
the hiring process, and as it is currently written, it refers it to the city manager. And it's, we don't want,
That's the HR policy.
yeah,
the HR policy does, not the city charter,
Not the
correct?
city charter.
right.
Okay.
And we
So-
don't want the city manager doing it, we want the mayor doing it.
And then,
So she's gonna amend that little section of the HR
but,
manual,
of the HR manual,
so that when we're looking at this very broad stroke that's written here, remember, we're supposed to be broad here,
I understand that.
we have to
I
keep us
understand
out of
that.
legal trouble for hiring over there.
I just know that when we started with this process, Kirsten made the comment that everything on the city charter was legal. And that,
I am gonna jump in,
Yeah.
real quick, I'm gonna jump, because I think I can clarify,
Legal, what's that supposed to mean?
I think I can clarify some of the confusion. Please correct me if I do not clarify the confusion.
Okay,
Currently, as it stands, if we were to refer to the Human Resources Manual, let's say we changed to nothing except for, Chief of Police, the mayor can nominate the Chief of Police in accordance with HR policy, right?
oh yeah, we don't wanna say that.
That would make it so that the policy that we have in place now, the HR policy we have in place now, essentially gives the power for HR decisions to the city manager, right? And so that would take the power away from the mayor. It seems like the council is wanting to make sure that there is some process which allows, instead of just, because the way that the charter is written right now, it just says nominate the chief of police or nominate the chief of fire. That could be anyone. There's nothing in there that says it has to be in accordance with human resources. I think it certainly does need to be in accordance with state law, and we have assumed that, but it seems that the council is wanting to explicitly include these are the human resources policies which will apply to this specific appointment and nomination. Is this where we're all going? I'm
that's
seeing
not
nods
where
and I'm
this
seeing
one's
head
going.
shaking.
No, and you didn't get specific, you didn't refer it back to the mayor, I didn't hear that part.
I'm not finished.
Oh, good, well, where you stopped, we're not in agreement with that.
So the change that we're going to make will say nominating in accordance with the HR manual or appointing in accordance with these HR policies. The HR policies are now going to be written out, giving the mayor these decisions on these on police and fire, which is what he has under the charter, but under our current human resources policies, the city manager is over that human resources section. I'm still seeing nods and head shaking, which is,
We're just waiting for the rest of it.
Yeah.
Keep
I'm
going.
trying not to
Keep going,
do something
please.
that I, get in trouble.
No, we're with you, so you're good.
essentially, what is going to happen is that there's going to be a new HR policy written. We are going to refer to the HR policy regarding fire and police in this charter provision. We're not gonna say section such and such, we're not gonna say section such and such, because if we change our HR policy, so we'll have to go back and change it by. Right. So we're going to say the human resources policy regarding police and fire, the mayor's, anything under this charter provision will be done in accordance with that human resources policy on police and fire, which we are going to create, which currently now does not exist in and of itself. And that's it.
Explain the importance of the HR manual
Go
real
for
quick,
it.
please. If you would.
If I may, I've been recognized by the president. I have no problem with changing human resource manual. I agree, if it says what you're saying, and I have mentioned that I don't know who could possibly memorize a whole human resource manual. I'm not on that list. However, what we're suggesting is to change item D and refer in item D of the charter to the human resource manual. And if we're going to do that, then we need to do it on every other item on the charter.
If it talks about hiring someone.
If it talks about anything that has to do with anything about human resource, you're taking this one thing and you're trying to manipulate it back to human resource, and I don't agree with it. It is fine like it is, the changes that Councilor Ross wants to make, that's fine, but when you keep twisting around, but in the end, you're saying you wanna put item D, you wanna put the mayor must hire according to the human resource manual. Why do we need to put that into that one item when it is the truth about every item? I don't like it.
But because this particular one is for you.
Oh, well, the rest of you, it doesn't matter, it's for me.
Yeah, but no matter what, they gotta go through the HR manual, right? No matter whoever gets hired here has to go, right, so why can't we just change,
They didn't last time.
why can't we just change where the council people looks at the resume and it is an interim and it's all voted on, we're still gonna vote yes or no, we're still gonna have the final decision before it even goes to HR.
And there are other provisions of HR that are the state statutes, well, not state statute necessarily, but fair labor standards that keep us out, like the veterans preference.
Right.
And, the qualifications,
All those exist. They don't
Right.
need to be put into the charter.
but they need to be referred to.
They don't need to be put into the charter specifically on the responsibilities of the mayor. No, they don't.
I'm not sure that they do, or I'm not sure that they don't.
No, they don't. I'm
If-
telling you, I
Legally
oppose.
speaking,
If you want them to happen, they need to be here.
The charter, the HR policy is a standalone institution. The charter is a standalone institution. You are now trying to intertwine them at the very point where the mayor's responsibility is, and suddenly telling the mayor that he has to do what everybody knows you have to do, whether they do it or not.
Well, it didn't get done last time.
Well, that's history. Do you wanna go into history? We
No,
can go
I-
as far back as
I
you
just don't
want
want it to happen again.
The point is that HR policy is what HR policy is, and it does not need to be inserted into item D, period.
We need to follow what the HR manual says.
Of course.
And it needs to reflect on that sheet what she's gonna also have,
I think we should look at it and then decide.
correct there?
I wanna look at it and then decide.
Well,
It may not be necessary once we look at it.
I'm going to be against it. I think it's unnecessary clouding of the
And it may be.
broad strokes of the charter. And it is something that is put in there for reasons of which I cannot imagine, but in this particular one, I think it's a mistake.
Okay,
I'm done.
I appreciate it. I think the rest of us wanna see it written in that way. Does everybody wanna see it written that way or don't wanna see it written that way? I wanna see it before I decide.
I mean, I can see it, but.
And he may be right.
I don't think we gotta have it in, and I think we can just change those two words.
He may be right.
How it is.
I'm fine with the
Change it to interim and change it to where we review resumes as well, and just leave everything.
I'm fine with
And
it.
I agree with that.
We probably
I
need
agree with-
we probably need to add what happens if we don't agree, and that it's referred back to him.
Well, should we
Don't you
say
think we need
anything
to
about
add that
it?
too?
If you don't approve the candidate, it has to go back to the mayor. I mean, where else is it gonna go?
I think it needs
To
to
the
say
city
it.
manager?
I don't think it just needs to be left in oblivion. No, it doesn't go to the city manager. That's why you need to say that it goes back to the mayor.
But right now, it would go back to the mayor, right?
It has to go back to the mayor.
I mean, the way it is right now, it would,
Yes.
if we voted it no, it would go back to the mayor, correct? Right now?
If we would not have approved chief
I would
roles,
think so.
then the mayor would have had to renominate somebody else.
Yes.
Correct.
my legal opinion on the way that it is written is that I would read it to say that it then goes back to the mayor for another appointment, as it is now.
I think it needs to say that.
Well, I disagree.
But that's how you would read it right now, how it is?
As right now.
That's how I would read
She
it
would
right now.
add that, she said.
No, you're saying you read that currently now, like.
Currently, I would read the provision to say that if it's not approved by the city council, then we would restart the process.
She wants to add it, is what she's saying.
No, that's not what she said.
That is most certainly what she
You want
said.
to add that, or are you saying it's already in there now, how you read it?
I'm saying with no change, if we changed nothing, and the situation happened that the mayor appointed someone, and the city council did not approve them, and someone asked me, Kirsten, what do we do? I would say the mayor appoints someone again.
Right.
That's simple.
So I say we just change those words.
I agree,
I agree.
Say it on the, it doesn't here.
It doesn't have to be. Now, it's up to
I know,
you all
but
if
if
you
I ask you, are you gonna tell me, well, it's not here, so I can't tell you?
No.
I've heard that before.
Should we require an approved list of who is eligible for this position?
Just a resume.
We're not
a resume of who, and if I may ask, Councilor Ross, are you saying you want an approved, a resume of every candidate, not just the nomination?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
It's not our job to hire them, man, it's our job to just review it.
Yes.
Right.
The resume of the nomination or of the appointee, for sure, but not a resume of every candidate that the mayor considers.
And then just
He
the
may
4 or 5
consider 5 different
How
candidates.
do you make a decision if you don't see them all?
Will you decide on the candidate that is being nominated?
Well, you could bring the 5 to us that you narrowed down to your.
The mayor would go through the first, top 4 or 5, whatever. I don't wanna see 50 applications, that's not our job.
If
We're not here to hire.
if you
No, but I may wanna see the top
satisfied
5.
with the
Of the
nominee,
top 5.
Well, that's not
if you're
here.
not satisfied with the nominee, you can just reject him, and then the mayor has to go back through the process and bring you another nominee with another resume.
And I can tell you, if I don't know who all the nominees are, I don't know if you picked the most qualified
So then
one.
why is the mayor
We're
doing the
not hiring,
nomination?
he's hiring, we're just approving. We're not hiring, the
We're-
council don't hire, we
Right.
approve. He's hiring the man.
He's not hiring, he's appointing an interim.
Right, but he's bringing it to us to approve it. It's not our job to read 20 or 50 resumes and say, we think he's the best person.
No, but
That's-
you might wanna
that's my point.
read the top 3.
Oh, so now you want a list of, in accordance, so.
How do you make a
heading down the
decision if
rabbit
you don't
trail
know
of
it?
which there is no end. John, President John,
Well, I'm
the
hearing-
council's job is to either, very clearly, very simply, either approve the nominee or the appointee or not approve it. If you're asking to put something like the resume so you can make that decision, that is very reasonable. I have no problem with that. If you go away from that very simple precedent, then you start getting into an area of how many people did he interview, how many people did he consider, how many resumes do you guys wanna get? And, oh, we just want the top 3, so now I have to decide who is number 1, 2, not me, the mayor has to decide who's 1, 2, or 3. It is a rabbit trail with no end.
Or we're gonna sit up here and argue over which ones we like the best.
Exactly.
Resumes, and it's gonna go nowhere. It's our job to approve.
I agree.
I would have to trust the mayor into picking,
May I?
if that's his job.
Why
I'm
not?
gonna ask a question. When we hire general employees, and this is really no different when you're hiring anybody, there's boundaries that we have to take into consideration.
Qualifications.
Yes, our labor laws, and one of them, for example, veterans preference, you get 15, applications. We have in our manual that's been adopted by this council saying that veterans have preference when you're hiring. So when you start ranking your candidates, there are certain things from making sure that we're not discriminating, or that, and then, from employment law status, we have to make sure we're meeting those requirements, so we're not putting the city in a lot of the situations.
And that is.
That's all I'm saying. So this is no different different than hiring a general employee. Somehow or another, those applications have to be vetted at least to say, don't forget this and this and this, and here's what you have to choose from based on requirements. So just keep that in mind, that y'all can make a decision, but somebody has to review them, just to make sure we're following our labor laws. That's really all. So how
And the
you do
qualifications
that
are met.
is up to you.
I'm going to say it again.
I believe there is a difference.
There is a
Hiring
difference.
chief of fire or chief of police than a general employee.
Okay?
The mayor
I
has a
agree. Specific, it spells out,
responsibility to do what you're
all
doing.
the stuff, I should then say, and general employee.
So we're gonna exempt them from the rest of the HR rules that you adopted. I'm just putting this out there saying y'all adopted something. How do we separate this from that?
We don't need.
We're gonna take the mayor's selection of who he thinks is the best, and he's gonna give us the resumes, and we're gonna read them and see if we approve it. We're gonna approve it or not approve it.
He's gonna give
It
us,
don't matter.
he's
if
gonna give us
somebody
one
else is-
resume or two, or all of them,
It don't matter. I mean, that's,
Okay.
he prevents his or he presents his choice.
just one, you're saying.
Right, because we're gonna start arguing over 20 resumes and who's the best. Bring us your candidate, who you think is the best. We'll vote it or we won't vote it. We'll approve it or not.
Okay, the HR process is an important process. The HR process needs to be. The HR process does not need to be addressed in the charter. That's my point.
No, but it needs to be followed.
That's, if somebody doesn't follow it, address it with the person that didn't follow it. Not try to change the charter to try to hamstring everybody else into your will. The charter is not the place to address the HR policy, other than a policy to directly refer to the HR. You're putting it in arbitrarily into a single spot that is the mayor's responsibility, and I think it's inappropriate, and I don't like it, and I think it's wrong. I have no problem with the HR policy. I have a problem with inserting a reference to that in this spot, because by the president's memory, somebody in the past may not have done what she feels that he should have done for the HR policy. That is the time to address that. The charter is not a place for the HR policy reference in this particular point. That's what I'm arguing.
And I'm not the only one who feels that way, so. I don't know how you-
I'm not saying you're not, and I'm not naming any names.
Of course you did. It's the
But-
same month.
Is the charter not rules for the city?
Yes,
It is.
Okay, then it should specify and at least match in accordance to the HR policy. Now, if they're gonna tweak it to take the reference off of Jackie to you, what's the issue?
there is no hitch, Counselor. My point is,
There is, you don't want it. That's an issue.
you wanna just, anytime you wanna interrupt me, you just go ahead and I'll be quiet until you're finished.
It's called discussion
Yes,
and
okay,
debate.
so it's okay for you to interrupt me, but if
No.
I interrupt you. it's
I
fine.
told you 3 times
Okay.
tonight, you just talk
Okay.
when you want to.
Here's my point. The HR policy, in my opinion, is fine. What I don't like is inserting a reference to the HR policy in this particular place when it has no bearing on the point of this particular place, which this particular place is about the mayor nominating someone. If the mayor doesn't follow HR policy, address that with the mayor at that time, but it doesn't need to be in the charter here, or if it does need to be in the charter here, there's probably 20 other places in the charter we need to do the same thing. It's broad strokes is what this lady gave us a PowerPoint for. The charter is meant to be broad strokes.
I think it's the only place for hiring somebody in the whole charter, other than the city manager maybe.
Kirsten, could we be set up by having 2 separate things like this up for a lawsuit if something's not followed right?
I'm not sure I
I know that
understand
you're not
your question. So it's 2 separate what?
Okay, so HR's policy says one thing, the charter says something else. And if it's not followed as such and somebody decides to hire a labor attorney, could we be set up for a lawsuit? Because of 2 different languages.
So if you're saying, right, if I hear what you're saying if the charter says you don't have to follow HR policy, and the HR policy, it obviously is something that you need to follow, and you go with those two, that absolutely, yes, I mean, there are federal and state laws regarding employment, and those are very, very important, that the city follow, and I would not recommend deviating from them. I will say that I don't, and this is me, your attorney, reading this, I can give it to other attorneys in my office, and they can give me their opinions on it as well, but it is my understanding that the HR policy applies to Section D.
Because we ain't hired him yet, we just approved him, he's not hired yet. Then once he gets approved, he goes to the hiring.
He's approved.
That's when you still gotta fill out paperwork or whatever, right?
Well,
If we vote on him, he's done.
right, so I think what I'm hearing is maybe the ideological difference here is, maybe it can be inferred from this language that the HR policy that applies to everyone else does not apply to this, or alternatively, on the other side of thinking, it does apply to this. So I think that might be where we are sitting at an impasse. Some people think that automatically applies and some people don't.
Is there anything in this section that implies in any way that HR policy does not need to be followed?
No,
I wouldn't read it that way, no.
I wouldn't read it that way.
I wouldn't either.
Which is my point. It's that simple.
I will write up whatever you all.
however, if you
write up.
want HR policy followed, you should refer to it.
This
I
was-
saw Mr. Barber first.
I don't have a comment on this particular, but it has to do with the section, so I just wanted to say that. I was curious, you know, you guys for a small town are really blessed with two great chiefs, and they're really experienced, and they have two great people underneath them. I think both departments have deputies. So I was just curious why, if we have deputies, would someone appoint someone as an interim? Why wouldn't that become the deputy who's usually being trained to take over? So, I mean, I get that you want to have more time in there, but why would you appoint? Why wouldn't you just say it reverts to the deputy in an absence? And then while you select and go through your vetting, have the deputy in charge?
You don't wanna tie your hands.
Why wouldn't that be the responsibility of the administrator of the departments to make that decision? He may not feel that the deputies are the ones that he feels would be best.
Just a question.
I am meaning no offense at all in my answer. That is my take on the position. Sometimes deputies make wonderful deputies, but they may not make the best chief.
Yeah, but you were just
And
referring
that
to
is why
interim.
we have-
That's all I was suggesting. I wasn't
Yeah.
talking about permanent replacement.
Yeah, and that is why we have a individual who, in this case, is the mayor, who is charged with the administration of those departments.
Mr. Cole.
I'm still Albert Fuller.
Yes, you are.
There are other places in here that refers to employees.
Yep.
Why not just put a statement someplace that says all employment shall be subject to the HR manual? And then let the mayor get with the HR person to write his portion of the HR manual. That way you get rid of all the confusion. Why can't I have it this way and the other have it that way? Just reference the HR manual and be done with it.
That's pretty much what we said, actually, from the very beginning, that we were gonna have to refer to the HR manual,
Not just for this, but for every.
and then pull out and write a special section that had to do with police and fire, that referred it to the mayor, not the city manager. That's, we said that from the very beginning.
That is
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
Well, you
Somewhere in
don't
the
want
charter,
it, as it
general.
exists in the city, in the HR manual, it goes to the city manager, you don't want that to happen, right?
If the manual has a section for police and fire, then it won't go to the city manager.
Change the HR manual.
Exactly.
Well, that's
That's
what
what we
good.
said from the very beginning.
And
That's what we
What
said,
you're saying is you wanna put it here.
we said it
And I'm
30
saying,
minutes
put it in
ago.
general, don't put it here,
No, we
put
said
it
we
in
wanted to
general.
put it in the HR manual, not here.
I'm saying, the reference to the HR manual should be general, it should be for all employees, not just for the mayor.
That's right.
So maybe it's a new section, another one of those new sections.
That was my suggestion.
I appreciate it. But we still have to make that special section that's for police and fire, that it goes to the mayor, not the city manager, because that's not what it says right now. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what we've been saying for 30
And this
minutes.
here-
That's what we've been
In the HR manual.
This is,
Okay.
how many years
Out
is
of the
this?
charter.
I think probably,
12.
yeah, 12 years,
So labor laws in 12 years have changed.
yeah, yeah. And our HR
So we
manual
have
has
to
changed in 12 years.
update our rules.
We went through the HR manual, what?
Okay, so now we have a second new section that we were contemplating adding that refers to hiring in the HR manual. And we need a special section that pulls police chief and fire chief out of that HR manual and refers them to the mayor, not the city manager.
Not in the
Okay.
charter, Mr. Fuller, in HR.
So,
Say it again? Who said
He,
that?
he was thinking you were talking about in the charter, I was telling him it was just the HR manual you were talking about
Yeah,
changing.
HR manual.
to sum up and clarify, so that everyone knows what their jobs are here. I will draft for you a proposed addition in our general provisions clause at the end of our charter, which says all employment decisions will be made in accordance with the current HR manual and current employment code, something like that. For this provision that we're discussing right now, we will not be making a specific reference to any HR manual or policy. We will make bring the resume, and we will make the interim and appointment changes as discussed. And then Dina and Jackie will work on the HR policies and the HR manual, which we will then be able to refer to in our brand new section.
We will have a mayor as happy as a frog.
I swear that's what we've been talking about for 30 minutes, I promise. You're good. You can side view me all you want, that's okay.
I'm gonna give this side look.
You did, I saw
I
it.
know of people that get in real trouble overlooked.
Yeah, I'm one of them. Okay, I have a shirt that says, "Did I roll my eyes out loud?" Because I do that all the time.
Thank you.
Are we through with D? Lord, I think we are. All right, we're gonna move on to E. Maybe we can get through this section before we have to go home. All right, suspend the mayor shall, we're back to, the provisions here. What did that help me? I'm trying to give it elections and term, I gotta go back over here, sorry.
City council, right?
The mayor's duties and powers, the mayor of the city shall, that was what it leads into. The mayor of the city shall suspend the chief of police or the fire chief at any time by referring charges in writing with the city clerk of the city. Following which the city council at its next regular meeting or a special meeting for such purpose called shall consider said charges. And if the action of the mayor is confirmed by the majority of the city council, such chief shall thereby be removed from office. Everybody okay with that part? Okay with that part? Look at you. Yes, sir.
Sorry, you did not address me, so
I'm
yes,
sorry.
ma'am,
Okay, the city council shall have the authority by the majority vote of its members to prefer such charges against the chief of police or the fire chief. The charges shall be made by preliminary resolution filed with the city clerk and a copy served upon the said chief. In such case where the mayor does not refer the charges against the said chief, the city council may. After the hearing upon charges preferred by the council by 3/5 vote of the members of the council, suspend or remove the said chief of office, from office. Are you okay with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Moving to F. Nobody in the audience, right? All right. be recognized as head, the mayor shall be recognized as the head of the city government for all ceremonial purposes and of the government for the purpose of military law.
Check.
Okay with that?
Check.
Check. G, have the right to approve or veto any ordinance adopted by the city council within 30 days after the date of such adoption. In the event the mayor vetoes an ordinance, it shall be the duty to file his reason for vetoing such ordinance in writing with the city clerk. Any ordinance vetoed by the mayor may be overridden by a 4/5 vote of the council. In the event the mayor does not veto an ordinance within said time, the ordinance shall go into effect as if it had been approved by the mayor.
I have no problems.
I'm seeing Mr. Steele.
Yes, ma'am, my only question with this would be, let's take our, electrical rates or airport rates or any kind of rate changes that we're doing.
Right.
We're moving to a resolution system, and with that not being an ordinance any longer, how would the mayor, if he disagrees with the process, how would he go about, or does he just outright lose that power to veto because it's in a resolution
If it's
format?
written as a resolution, he doesn't veto resolution.
Should we add that?
We have not agreed to change it from an ordinance to a resolution yet. Is
Some
that
things-
accurate?
Some things are resolutions, they're not ordinances.
We're talking about the utilities rates.
Oh, we're not
He's
talking,
about.
he's talking about in general.
No, you're talking about utility rates.
Or airport rates or any fee schedule.
Yeah.
Right.
We have
Okay.
some by resolution now, but not all of them.
Okay,
Yeah.
we have some by not the utilities.
Not all.
That's coming.
And we write resolutions all day long.
Yes, ma'am.
And that-
I'm
they're not included.
I'm not giving them a problem, but utility rates is going to be brought before the council potentially to change from ordinance to resolution, correct?
No. We
There's
changed,
two
we
different-
changed it.
We did the gas and we didn't change it, but we haven't entertained electric yet.
And we did not change the gas to be changed from ordinance to utility, we just changed the rate
That's
of the
right.
gas.
Correct.
Right.
Not from ordinance to
That's correct.
resolution.
But when you
Correct.
see the electric rates, the conversation may be brought up again, just so you're informed. That's
Yes,
all.
ma'am.
Yes.
And when we see the electric, and I don't wanna get off on this.
I'm sorry to say, that's not really what we're talking
You're
about
right.
tonight.
My point is, to answer your question about, you started off with the utilities rates, and then you broadened it, right?
Any
Yeah.
He said ordinance
If
in
the
general.
if it is not an ordinance, if the council changes something from an ordinance to a resolution, as President Jones said, the mayor loses any opportunity to try to get the council to look at it again. 3/5 majority, it's a done deal, the mayor can go home.
And some things are written as resolutions, they're never ordinances.
I agree, I'm not.
Well, that wasn't quite the way you stated it, though.
I'm sorry.
You acted like we took all the power away.
No, ma'am.
No, that
Well, it
was
sort of
my,
sounded that way.
his question, right, not mine.
Well-
That wasn't his information.
Yeah, sort of, but he restated it pretty much the same.
Correct. To clarify, if something is currently codified as ordinance, for instance, let's take the airport,
Right.
land lease rates is what Benson was referring to. We did recently change that, so previously it was codified via ordinance. If something is codified via ordinance, the only way to change that is to pass an additional ordinance that says, instead of it being codified via ordinance, we're gonna codify the rate via resolution. That's the only way to do that. So, for instance, with the airport land lease rates, the ordinance that we did have had the rates. We came to the city council and we said, this ordinance says we'd like to change it to, we're going to apply these rates via resolution. Now, the mayor at that time could have vetoed that ordinance, which changed the rate to resolution instead of ordinance. But you're correct. After that process, after it is already codified by ordinance that the rates will be set via resolution, the mayor cannot veto the resolution.
Got it.
Thank you.
Okay.
I got it.
All right. I got 15 more minutes. Section 2.06, City Council General Powers. All powers of the city shall be vested in the city council except those specifically given to the mayor or charter officers or specifically reserved by this charter to the electors of the city. So far, so good? 2.07. Council employee relationship. Neither the city council nor any of its members shall in any manner dictate the appointment or removal of any city employee except the charter officers. Nor shall the city council or any of its members give orders to any city employees other than orders by the city council to a charter officer. The city council or its members individually shall deal on all matters through the proper charter officer. Are you okay?
No, I just wanna make sure that everybody agrees with what this says. It says here that none of us, no city council member, can in any manner dictate the appointment or the removal of any city employee. So what this says is, if the city manager wants to appoint a assistant city manager, she has that right and the council cannot object to it. That's what it says. Everybody understand that?
Yes.
There was a big
She
to-do.
just has to go through the proper
There was a-
channels, yeah.
There was a big to-do about that happening.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read this, I said, I don't know what all the big to-do
Light
was
bulb.
about. This clearly says hiring is by the city manager and the council cannot interfere in that process. If you don't like what she's doing, you can fire her, but you cannot interfere in her process. And I remember there was a great deal of hassle about certain appointments. And I just wanted to, that's why I highlighted this, because this makes it clear as bell.
Yeah.
We can't do that. I, as the mayor, of course I can, but the council can't do this.
Right.
Okay?
Any questions from anybody?
I was just curious, the word appointment, would that be the same?
You gotta come to the microphone, I'm sorry.
I'm not saying this in opposition to what this amendment did, but would the word appointment or hire be different?
It says,
No.
it says
So,
the same thing.
appointment was, it, I mean, to me, I'm just asking, is an appointment a hire, that's all I'm asking.
Yes.
It is,
Or hire, you know.
someone else other than me to answer that question.
She appointed her as the deputy city manager.
No, I understand that, and I'm not contesting that, I'm just saying the verbiage should be hire versus appoint, that's all I'm asking. Because an appointment is, to me, is different than a hire,
It is different than
It
a hire.
is different.
And both need to go by
Semantics, but
human,
maybe.
HR policy.
It is.
Yeah, that's why I
And
said.
it doesn't need to be in here.
That's why.
Appointments.
Okay, that's why I said when you said that it still has to follow HR policy. Yes, she has the right, it has to follow HR policy. Yeah.
And I.
And it is, right?
Would a promotion necessarily be an appointment? To me, appointment and a promotion is different.
Not for that particular job.
It is, whether it's an appointment or a promotion, they all fall within
I
the city
understand that, but I
manager.
was just saying maybe the verbiage could be changed, that was my point.
I'm fine with the verbiage. as
I
it
am
is.
too.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to vacancies. 2.08, the office of the mayor or a council member shall become vacant upon death, resignation, removal from office in any manner authorized by law, failure to maintain continuous residency within the city of Williston, failure to attend 4 consecutive regular meetings of the council without an excuse by the council prior to an excused, maybe it means to be being excused. Can you make that excuse instead of excused?
It says
Being, without being
being
excused.
excused,
Thank
which
you.
is correct.
By the council prior to the 4th meeting. Procedures of the filling of such vacancies shall be provided by ordinance. Are you okay?
I have no issue.
Anybody else okay? Good. Not hearing anything. Check. All right. Is this a good place to stop, or are we good? I think this is a good place to stop, don't you?
I was really looking forward to the next one.
Well, I think the next one will take a long time. I think we should. So I mean, we've only got 2 more things in this particular section, if you wanna keep going. It'll finish Article 2 if you wanna go 2 more.
I defer to the request of the city clerk.
Well, it's not 9 o'clock yet, so, I defer to y'all. Y'all wanna finish the article, or you wanna wait until next time?
I'm just enjoying the heck out of this.
Alright, should we finish these, so we're through with the article? And
Go,
and
do
hope
it.
we didn't make the wrong
Let's
decision.
do it.
Section 2.09, city council meetings and voting.
Party going.
Meetings, the council shall meet regularly at least once in every month, and such times and places as the council may prescribe by rule. Special meetings may be held on the call of the mayor or by 3 or more council members, and whenever possible, upon no less than 12 hours' notice to each member. All meetings shall be public.
Check.
Check. Voting. Voting may be by voice vote, except when a roll call vote shall be required on appropriation of funds or any motion upon the call of any council member. The ayes of each roll call vote shall be recorded in the journal. Don't think we have a journal, so that may need to be changed.
Yeah, it's a minute.
Maybe recorded in the minutes. I think we should change it to minutes, so I'm just gonna be asking for the journal. 3 members of the council shall constitute a quorum, but a smaller number may adjourn from time to time and may compel the audience.
Attendance.
May compel the attendance of absent members in the manner and subject to the penalties prescribed by the rules of the council. What the heck does that mean? Constitute a quorum, but smaller number may adjourn from time to time.
It means a smaller number than 5 can have a meeting.
No,
That means 3 is a quorum.
it says 3 is a quorum, but a smaller number than 3. It doesn't
If
say
2 show
that.
up, you can,
Madam-
adjourn.
May adjourn from
Madam
time to
President,
time.
it's about not allowing you guys to have a meeting. It prevents 2 or 3 members from preventing a quorum. You guys can compel them by Florida statute to constitute the 1 meeting a month.
To show up.
Correct. So it's not like the meeting can continue, but it's saying 2 can sit there and can compel the other members to show up.
Compel the attendance of absent members in the manner subject to the penalties prescribed for the rules of council.
It's just preventing it.
I think that's kinda outdated, but I think it's okay.
Well, the rules of council, if, read this charter correct, is if you haven't showed up in 4 meetings
Well, I know, but it's-
by charter, you're dismissed from the council.
But if you don't have a quorum, it wasn't a meeting.
Right.
And you
But
can,
if
you
don't
can,
have a quorum because you didn't show up,
and you can try to compel those that aren't here to show up, and so you can have a meeting.
This comes from the U.S. Federal House of Representatives and the Senate.
It's part of what they say.
No, I'm just saying, it's because you can prevent the 4 meetings from happening.
Okay, gotcha. So you prevent the meeting from happening. by
Then no
not
meeting
showing
has
up.
happened and you haven't missed 4
So
meetings.
you purposely don't show
Gotcha,
up.
okay. now.
Purposely don't show up in order to prevent it from
Right.
happening.
Check.
Check, I'm with you now.
I will
Thank
say,
you,
I
Mr.
hate
Barber.
to throw this in, we have 3 minutes left and poor Latricia's
Oh,
gonna
I
turn
keep
into a
going.
pumpkin. I will say, me too, I'm gonna turn into a pumpkin, that's my business.
Yeah, your hair's already orange.
It does say a roll call vote shall be required on appropriation of funds. That language I read very broadly to mean a roll call vote is required on any time that the council is spending money.
That's crazy.
So if that's what you want, I would keep that, and we should make sure that our practices comply with that. If that is not what you would like, I would advise considering changing that language to be less broad.
Okay, I agree.
okay? Voting may be made by voice vote,
Maybe by voice vote.
okay? It was brought to my attention that there was an ordinance or a resolution sometime in the past that required something other than that. So if it's in the charter this way, can you be compelled by resolution to do it a different way?
The charter trumps resolutions and ordinances.
You
So
know,
if the
I'm
chart-
beginning to like you.
That's all the answer, thank you. That's why she's here.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I didn't need all of that.
Should it read voting may be by voice, or should it be shall be? Voting shall be by voice vote on any motion upon call of any council member.
I think May. May is fine. Then
Yeah.
the council president can run the meeting however the council president chooses to run.
Except I was taking out the appropriation of funds roll call vote. And if so, I was just trying to write a new sentence. That's what I'm trying to do.
Keep it as May.
All right, so are y'all in agreement with taking out the roll call vote for any use of, any expenditure of funds? Yes. Okay, so can you rewrite that sentence for us that makes sense? Thank you very much. All right, last section. Investigation 2.10. The council may make investigation into the affairs of the city and the conduct of any city department, office, or agency, and for this purpose may subpoena witnesses, administer oaths, take testimony, and require the production of evidence. Any person, I'm on top of page 4, under section 2.10. Any person who fails or refuses to obey a lawful order issued in the exercise of these powers by the council shall be guilty of a misdemeanor in the 2nd degree, punishable as provided by law. That's kind of tough.
When you say affairs of the city, does that include employment affairs?
I would think so. It would have to be something that was brought to us that needs to be investigated, I would think. And I don't know how that would be done. Right. It probably would be part of the HR policy. I know you don't want to hear that.
Well,
Oh, I love hearing about other places.
I guess it.
Yeah, I just have a concern when it says affairs. I think it needs to be defined, especially if it's gonna include employment affairs. Because if the council does not oversee and the city manager oversees the employees, then why does the council investigate it?
For the allegation.
Yeah, if someone was brought to us, we would have the right to investigate it. And we have done that before in years.
If criminal conduct is done
It
by
happened the latter part of last year. There was an investigation done that the mayor requested at the time, and it was regarding an employee in the police department. So I just want to make sure it's clarified if that's appropriate to do now that we're discussing this section. Is it appropriate for it to happen when it is in regard to employees?
In the city, in the HR manual, does it refer it back to the council as the hearing body for an appeal?
No.
It does, doesn't it?
No, it refers it to the city manager.
Yeah.
It gives,
All the employment
it gives a
managers
step
refer to the
process.
city
So
manager.
it no longer comes to the city council, it goes directly to the city manager? Okay, so that's changed since I was aware. So that was the only reason I could think of that we would be doing it.
Okay.
And if it goes to the city manager instead of to us, I don't know that it needs to be here.
I have a legal question. If this compels an employee to produce something, how does that not conflict with a Fifth Amendment right? So, if the employee is compelled to produce something,
If we gave them a subpoena, we'd have to issue a subpoena, and then that would be,
so this body can issue a subpoena?
Under this provision.
if we're doing an investigation.
Okay, but once again, a
Just
subpoena,
like-
even in
Just
federal
like the House
law,
of Representatives or the Senate, they issue subpoenas.
right, but you still don't have to produce it if it's a Fifth Amendment right.
Well, they could always plead the fifth.
Well, I get that, but my point is it's saying, okay, so they pled the fifth, you don't have the evidence there, but by this, you can still charge them with a misdemeanor of the 2nd degree. No, no. Shall be guilty in the exercise of these powers of the 2nd degree. So, it has nothing to do with the charge. It's saying that if they stand on the 5th, how I read this, it says they're guilty of a misdemeanor of the 2nd degree. So how do you have something in place for a city that violates federal law? Or actually constitutional law?
Mr. Stiegel.
I would argue that it doesn't. in that it says any person who fails,
Yes.
fails or refuses to obey a lawful order. So that's where the criminal act is taking place.
The
If
lawful
you're-
order
right,
part.
in a lawful order. It doesn't exempt you from, not pleading the fifth, given any kind of testimony or anything like that. It's just saying that, if you fail to refuse, or fail to, produce this evidence, or fail to obey a lawful order, then the council can take action if they so choose to.
What is a lawful order? We're not talking about telling someone that they gotta go mow the grass, right? That's
a
not
lawful
what
order.
a lawful order is.
Sure it is.
And it's not
It is.
necessarily talking about.
We're not in the army anymore, young man.
The lawful order.
If a lawful order would be a
That's what I'm saying.
it's a law, that's right.
Law, right,
Not a law.
but the lawful order is not saying that we can
Yeah.
If you don't do what your employer says, you're subject to being dismissed. Not charged with,
So can I give a scenario? Let's say you guys pass an ordinance that is against the law federally.
Number one, we're not gonna do that.
No, I'm not saying that, but things need to get updated, correct? Laws change on the state and you have to reflect it on the ordinance.
It wouldn't be against the law if we had just not done it.
I'm saying if you had an existing ordinance and someone refused to obey that ordinance as an employee, you had an investigation, they refused to participate, they're found guilty of violating the ordinance, but they stood on the Fifth Amendment, they can still be charged on a second degree.
Number one, they should participate so they can tell us it's illegal.
That's
And
a-
then we would be all fine.
But they don't have to according to their constitutional right. That's all I'm saying.
You're way out there, Donald. Okay, so I would like to ask, the attorney to look at this and see if it's necessary. If it's not part of our HR manual. I know, I'm sorry, but it all comes today, you can laugh all you want to.
no, I'm sorry, I'm laughing because you looked at me as soon as.
I did not, I looked at you when you laughed.
Michelle,
Okay. If it's not something that is referred to in our HR manual as an investigative process that the council has the ability to do, it probably doesn't need to be here.
If our HR manual says something different than this says, then we need to change this, because
Right.
the HR manual has to be in compliance.
That's exactly what I was
Or we
saying.
can change our HR man.
One or the other, something has to change.
I have a question. It says here, the council may make investigation in the affairs of the city in the conduct of any department. Churches, other businesses, when people leave, they have an internal or a, independent auditor come in and audit the books for that. And they've learned that people like to borrow money for other things. Do we do that? If anybody leaves?
We have an auditor and we have a finance director as well.
But an independent, somebody with a different set of eyes looks at the books.
Our auditor is independent. Our finance director is not independent, but our auditor would be. I don't know the answer to that.
I believe we have an audit every year, isn't that accurate?
We do.
Yes.
We do have an audit every year.
So if somebody leaves a department, we don't go and do an independent audit on that.
Usually there's not a reason to, because the finance director's been on top of it and the city manager's been on top of it.
Okay, there's that.
And usually the employees would know as well if there was some issue, and if so, we could do it.
Well, for instance,
depends on the situation. I agree.
for instance, I know with one of the churches, they send a weekly thing to the auditors. They send a monthly thing to the auditors. When the priest leaves, they have an independent auditor come in, and they find theft, not just secretaries, but priests and things like that. So that's my question is,
And this may be where the investigation comes in, is if we had reason to believe that there was a problem. But I think all of that is probably addressed in the HR manual. Not the audit part, but the investigation of theft and misappropriation of funds. I think all that would be part of HR, could be part of a, what am I trying to say, an offense. Not necessarily named as such, but. Okay, so we're to the Article 3 Charter Officer section, we'll do that. We need to set a next workshop date. I hate to tell y'all that. We got so many budget hearings running around, but we don't want to lose our momentum.
And remember, the presentation that we were given, this process can take a while. You'll need to make sure that you give enough time for Latricia and I and Dina and Jackie to do what you've asked us to do in this meeting, so that when we come back to the next meeting, we have the materials that you've asked for.
So in December the 5th of 2022 be okay?
You're so funny.
I mean, a marathon. I'm sorry, I shouldn't.
No, you're good, you're good. So maybe like, a month from now? Is that too soon?
I'm hearing a little longer from the left side of me,
All right.
If you do it,
and from inside of me.
if you're doing a month, aren't we running into the budget?
Yeah. Yeah.
Smack dab in the middle of it.
Right in the middle of that.
first budget.
Okay, so like, August 23rd? That's a long way from now.
See, December is not that far
No,
off.
it's really not. It's not, no. August would be the 2nd and the 16th. 2nd and the 16th of the council meeting.
Say that again, please?
The 23rd would give them 60 days.
Okay, are you saying August?
August
Yes,
23rd is what she is
August
saying.
23rd is what I'm proposing.
So you guys are free to do what you want, but you had tasked the chief with wanting to switch the room around, and there was a period, the last 2 weeks of August and the first week of September, where we had the 3-week period to transition and move it and not
Interrupt.
be in you guys' way and interrupt any meetings.
Then we really need to start looking at December, don't we?
No, I'm saying is if you guys wanted to meet in there, or if you could put it closer to the beginning of that,
Okay.
or past Labor Day. I mean, I
August
just,
10th?
if you guys want us to do that.
August 9th.
10th is the Tuesday.
August 9th?
No.
I will say that I am hearing from the staff around me that there is a lot of pressure on them for budget, and perhaps after budget would be a better time
Can we
for
give her a
them
round of
to
applause?
do this. That's, I just have the microphone around.
So we're moving back to
Exactly. Why did we even start if we were gonna wait 4 months?
It's a marathon.
It's a marathon.
John, start somewhere.
I did not mean for that to be
Hold the top of that.
I don't think we have any August, do we have any August budget meetings? I don't think we do.
Now we're just at preparing for the
I think
budget.
they're in July and in
You-
September.
Your July one that was set with Stephen was the first required. The September one was the millage due date.
Well, that's-
But you guys typically have a second budget workshop, and last year and the year before, you scheduled that in August. So, you don't have to do that, I just letting you know what's been in the past.
I just hate to wait 4 months and have to start all over again.
We're usually.
All right.
I think I'll be gone that day.
Whatever day it is, you're gonna be all right.
Don't we have some place to go?
Yes.
Whatever day it is,
So I guess we
we're
won't worry
gone.
about it until after budget, and we'll
Make
figure
a
out dates.
motion.
Do we wanna go, do August? July is out, I think. August, maybe.
Can we,
When do you wanna start on this room?
It was the last 2 weeks of August and the first week of September.
28.
When we were gonna do
can we
that.
think
July
about it?
28th.
Come back to this council meeting?
Yes, we could.
Yeah,
What about coming at the next council meeting?
5:30.
and we'll probably be here
Hopefully it's
for
gonna be
hours,
that bad, actually.
like 4 or 5 hours. We were here till 11:30 last year.
Why don't we, like at the next council meeting,
I'm not worried about it.
everybody look at their things and we pick
We'll
at
just
the
wait
next
till
council
after.
meeting.
We can always wait till
Is that
after.
July 28th that you're
So
talking
we
about?
can go, because we'll be here all night.
Pardon me, was the budget workshop July 28th?
Yes,
And what time does it start?
5:30.
I can get out of my meeting by then, I'll just tell them I have to go.
Are we doing August?
I remember you saying you had a budget, you had a hearing.
Are we gonna set,
Do what now?
are we gonna set anything up for August?
I don't.
I say we don't set up a meeting, we wait till after budget, we can figure out something then.
Oh, Lord, help
We'll be on the budget day that we lock down that.
We did.
September.
We've got a budget calendar. Letitia?
Remember, right now, Kirsten is in the office by herself.
September
Why
29th.
she's there by herself?
Scott, she's talking about, we did lose one of our attorneys who does municipal work, so I'm also doing some of her work as well. I'm sure October will be plenty of time for me to get all of this.
It's not sure how to look, girl.
Done.
All right, so I don't know that any of us know our calendar well enough for October to set something, unless you just want to set it, because we know it's the 4th and the 18th is council meeting.
Let's table it to the next council meeting, Tuesday. Everybody can look to see what they've got. We'll be here for another 15, 20 minutes trying to decide.
Okay, yeah, well, that's what I mean, I'm willing to wait till after the budget to decide.
Okay.
So,
I was ready to put something in the calendar.
Mr. Fuller, you better be quick.
This is just a quick footnote, but, the last thing considered, maybe we need to circle back, because we considered that, technology has changed and the ways meetings occur, especially in the event of emergencies like, Zoom meetings and the like. Maybe we need to circle back to that segment there, because voting may be by other means than just.
They won't let us.
They do.
You mean voting of us? No, they won't let us, the state tells us what we have to do.
They do?
They used to let us, during the emergency, they let us vote via Zoom, but now they've done away with that emergency order, now we're back to having to be present to vote. Right? Am I right about that?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I wish, because then we could be anywhere, like Councilman Robinson says. She could be anywhere and still tune in and vote, but they won't let us anymore. Like when she was sick, she was watching, but she couldn't vote. Yeah. Okay, the only announcement I have, very short, quick. We need to talk about the 4th of July. We know the parade starts at 5 o'clock. The Horseman's Park gates open at 7, but if you come, they'll let you in right after the parade, which is what I do, I go straight there. The setup is on Friday. I'm hoping you guys are all ready for that.
Yes, ma'am.
They told us we could put the stage under the pavilion. They're not bringing fireworks until Saturday morning, they're not bringing the sound system until Saturday morning.
Correct.
But the barrel race that they're gonna have on Friday night, they're gonna park all the way in the northern parking lot, so we'll have all of our normal space to do what we need to do. Many dumpsters, and all that kind of stuff.
What time do we?
Are you 4th of July people? Is that the same subject, or are you
I'm on
something
the
else?
second July, I wanna do the
Second
second.
July, I'm sorry.
Of the Independence Day celebration.
Yes.
But if y'all wanna meet at the back of the fire station on the 4th, you're more than welcome to.
I get ready to parade.
Okay, so you're gonna get picked up.
I get
where
picked up
you-
in the parade ground.
Everybody else wanna meet at the back of the fire station, or you wanna meet up at the top of the hill?
Like we normally do?
Yes.
That's fire station.
I say, so come to the fire station
Just
at about
checking.
4:30, and to board a fire truck, or whatever it is that the fire chief decides for us to ride on.
Oh, did you
4:30.
just?
9 o'clock. You need to come to the area.
Shriner
line up.
cars.
Okay.
Chief,
And you don't have to sit out there in the heat. Any longer than that. You know, whether it's a golf cart from the airport,
We do have one of those.
or whether it's a fire truck, we don't care, we just need to all be, the mayor says he's made his own arrangements, he's not riding with us.
Okay.
So it's just whoever wants to ride with us. If the utility department wants to have trucks or their little mini buggies in the parade, we would love to have them. Fireworks are at 9:30, we're gonna have to hope for no rain. It's not looking too good right now, but we are not calling off the parade.
It always rains.
It goes around, it goes around.
Who do I need to contact when Jerry calls about bringing the medals?
Me.
Who said me?
Who's gonna bring them either Friday evening or Saturday, and probably need to know where to put them.
Are we gonna have a trough to put the melons in? Do I know that answer?
Yes, ma'am, just like always.
Okay, so when the melons come, they'll go in this trough.
Yes,
We need
ma'am.
to probably cover them with a tarp to keep people out of them on Friday night.
That's fine.
And if y'all want ice, you need to let me know. I don't know, sometimes you put ice in them
We
and
want
sometimes
ice.
you don't.
I thought you had a donation from Winn-Dixie.
I do, but they're saying I need more, so it's
Oh, okay.
open.
We need ice.
We need ice.
We need ice.
They're saying we need
I mean, you got
more.
like 40 bags from me last year.
We need
So
5,
I
60
think
this
you
year.
probably need ice.
No, I don't need 40 bags from you, just 15.
I started
Oh,
taking
60.
Dixie as hard as a rock ice, and it's maybe 5 pounds.
Yeah, but yours is pretty.
I have 20-pound balls.
Maybe, I
And it's
don't know
free.
if the baseball field ice machine is hooked up or not, but nobody's using that right now. We maybe can get some coolers up there and ice machine at the baseball field, I think it's still plugged in, nobody will be using it, right?
Right on an ice machine, 6,400 pounds.
Her ice is pretty.
Let's go to that.
You need ice, you let me know, okay? No, I have crust ice.
Deborah, are you gonna have the watermelon cutters and all that stuff up there?
Yes, ma'am.
We
We'll
are?
get that under control.
Okay.
So the council's gonna be there cutting watermelons?
And I understand you ordered new decorations, I offered my old ones, but you have new ones.
Yes, ma'am.
Stage will be decorated, everything.
I have those blue table things if you decide you want them for anything. I have lots of them that covered a huge stage at the fair, so y'all remember that. Anything else?
Yes.
Not, yes, ma'am.
Music in the Park, Friday night, 7 to 9.
Lord, how are we gonna have time?
Sandra and Alex.
They're on their own.
I'm telling you. All right,
Which
7 to
part?
9,
Yes.
Friday night.
So if you're not doing,
Time's up.
We got a glitch, gotta go.
Leave on adjourn at 9. 9:20 for the record.
Ah, still doing it.
Sorry.
Good.
I looked at the budget, 11:30 as well.